All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from everything school HQ, ladies softball, SEC champions. Postseason play is here for the Tennessee rowing team. Tennessee is a 2 out of 3 series victory for the men's baseball team in Columbia against South Carolina from potentially hosting a regional, as their postseason is just, they're going to be playing postseason baseball. No one wants to play the Tennessee Volunteers when they're right. And with the cornucopia of talent on that team, everything's coming up. Tennessee basketball preseason top 10 team after what they did in the portal, and then Tennessee football, where you just look ahead and you're everywhere you look, you're like, oh, breakout candidate. Oh, Joe Milton. Oh, breakout wide receiver candidate. Squirrel White. Oh, who's the sneaky team to watch in the SEC going into next year? Who is it? 9.5 wins? Can they go 10 back to back? All this buzz around everything orange and white here on Rocky Top. And yet we have some Georgia stuff we have to talk about on this very program. And to do just that, and all things college football, fellow University of North Georgia alumni Matt Green is here. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is good to be back. There's a lot of Tennessee, but I've come to expect it from you to start these pods. But I'm at least digging your colors here on the YouTube channel. A little toned down with the orange. I'm a big fan of the black, the orange accent. I'm more on board with that.
So you like the change. You like the new look, and we got your name right there for the good folks on youtube.com/Chase Thomas Podcast. I mean, we're nearing 1,000 subscribers here, Matt Green. So we're getting bigger and bigger each and every day. We gotta keep up with the graphics. This is good stuff.
Any minimalizing of the orange is like, I don't know. I kid you not. Like it's literally, it's like a religion to me. Like Hindus, what is it? Hindus have like, they don't eat beef. Is that right? Is that cows are like sacred or whatever? It's legit. Like I'm not gonna wear anything orange. Like I don't own anything orange. Like it's not gonna happen. It's just my little niece, we were playing with crayons and stuff, like coloring, and I was just, hand me the orange. I was like, no, Uncle Matt doesn't like orange, and then it's become a whole joke. But yeah, so she knows orange isn't my thing.
She's gonna have a weird association with orange one day.
Hey, that's what, as she should. She should grow to hate it, like all Georgia fans do.
It's weird too. I was thinking about this. Speaking of things, when you're younger, you don't think about, or you'll just years later, you're like, why do I have an opinion on that, or why do I have this weird whatever that might be about any particular thing, like any food, color, whatever. You know me as a Aquaman, Matt Green, since the injury last fall with the daily swimming aerobics that I'm doing. And I was in the pool today, and the salt, I switched over to a salt pool for my laps. And let me tell you, once you go salt, you never go back. It's salt life from here on out, Matt Green, because when you start swimming laps in a salt pool, it feels so much better. You don't smell like chlorine. It just is a better all-around experience.
You can get a bumper sticker, Salt Life. You live the life.
People will misunderstand because I don't like the beach. It's not that kind of salt. I want salt in my pool, in my indoor heated pool. That's what I want. And I'm doing laps after work today. And they're like kids on this other side getting swimming lessons, right? And I thought, as I was going back and forth, I don't have any recollection whatsoever on swimming. Practicing swimming lessons, I assume my parents, I learned how to swim. So clearly I had some sort of, do you remember any swimming lessons for you when you were a kid? Do you have any recollection of that? Because I have no recollection of any kind of swim practice whatsoever.
No, I never did. I just wore the floaties at a certain age. And then at some point, you kind of figured out what you're doing. You didn't need to wear the floaties, so there's, you just you kicked, you figured it out, I'm probably not the best swimmer. So I don't have the best form or anything, but I'm not gonna sink. So
you do a mile right now. You had to do a mile swimming in a lake. Could you do it? Without stopping?
I honestly have no concept of what swimming a mile is even like. I assume I couldn't do it, but I have no idea how long. I've never even tried to swim for distance, so I don't even have a reference.
Well, what I'll tell you,
I probably couldn't run for a mile straight. without stopping, a straight mile, like run. You think you could run nonstop for what was that, 8 minutes or so? How long does it take you to run a mile?
Are you talking
10
about
minutes?
pre-injury or current chase?
Current chase, pre-injury.
Pre-injury was like 7:10, a little under 7.
You're running 7-minute miles?
Yeah.
Okay, I see you. I could run a pace for a 7-minute mile, I bet, but I don't think I could keep up the pace for like 4 laps.
So you know what's funny too about that is Tennessee, back when I was still a young graduate student here on the campus of Knoxville, Tennessee, Matt Green, you're obviously allowed to use the facilities, and they have the Tennessee track. And I don't know if you've ever run on like those super bouncy, like just unbelievable tracks where you fly. It feels like you're flying. So I did one run a couple summers ago actually, and I timed it. It was in the low. It was 6 something, but it was bonkers what I actually cleared, where I was moving, and you don't realize how quickly you're moving. So I think there's like, it depends on what you run on, where you run, because it's different if you're running hills, and Knoxville's pretty hilly. So am I doing a mile around downtown? Am I doing a mile at the park? Am I doing a mile on that bouncy track for the University of Tennessee, where it cuts 30 seconds because I move faster? I don't know.
Non-wind aided.
Yeah. But I don't know. I will say the last thing I'll say about the swimming thing, if you were to do it now, one of the things I would tell you that will blow your mind, and I didn't expect this because I wasn't a swimmer before I started doing all this, was that my legs were gassed. Like my quads and hammies were gassed. And I didn't understand like that was something that could just die out as you're running, or as you're swimming, because it doesn't feel like you're actually moving them that hard, or that you're actually working those muscle groups that much when you're swimming back and forth in the laps. But like you get out and you're like, I need a wheelchair. Like you go full Paul Pierce in the finals, where you're like, I need to be wheeled out of here because I have nothing left.
You gotta go to the bathroom.
Not that kind of situation, but you do want to sit down and not walk, because you're
I believe it. It's your whole body.
Yeah.
I've never been a like a legit swimmer like that.
It's a good workout, Matt Green. It's what we do. We're in our 30s. We have to adjust.
Yeah, fair enough.
We have to adjust. And Matt Green, now you're just like Dr. Doolittle over here with the dogs that you have coming in here each and every week. Did the Rottweiler get a home?
He did. He found a home, so that was nice. We've gotten a few pictures of him playing some tug of war with a Great Dane, and then these people have like a third dog too. So yeah, I think they changed his name to Baloo, so it's a quality name. But Baloo is in not as in Buck Baloo, but is in like Jungle Book Baloo. Like, what is it? You know what I'm saying? The bear.
I do know. What's his name?
Baloo? Rottweilers. Common to name Rottweilers after bears, or just name them straight up bear, because they kind of look like black bears. You know.
There you go. Zeus and Maddox wouldn't be sad because they were kind of.
But then the neighbors found another dog as well. So I was like, they're old, so they don't have Facebook and stuff. So I was like, yeah, we'll post something, But I think they're gonna keep it though. Honestly, haven't really heard anything about it. But yeah, it's like a little small dog.
There you go. Well, Matt Green, it is taping this on a Tuesday night, and what that means is we're a few days now removed from Dylan Raiola. Is that what we learned is the pronunciation? Raiola?
Yeah, I think that's the pronunciation I've heard. So that's what I'm going with. I've said Raiola in my mind a bunch of times, but yeah, Raiola is what I was told. I saw on a message board somewhere, almost like a PSA, like, hey, just so everybody knows it's Raiola. So that's what I'm going with.
ABC football announcers are already shaking at Nico Iamaleava versus Dylan Raiola in 2 years and having to go back and forth on those pronunciations.
Hey, I'm still if DJ Uyunglele never pans out, I'm gonna be bitter, because I learned how to say that name, and that was not easy. And we haven't really needed to say it because he just hasn't really been a factor in college football. But
might be good at Oregon State though this year.
He might be. He's a sleeper for sure. But yeah, I'm gonna have to teach myself on Nico. Nico, it's a solid first name though. So Tua, Nico, I think that's probably the workaround there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we could talk Nico if you want to. You want to talk about Nico Iamaleava all you want, because
I think the big news is about Dylan Raiola for sure.
So Dylan Raiola, 5-star quarterback, number 1 in his class, number 1 overall in multiple services. They follow what Tennessee did last year in getting the number 1 overall player in the 2022 recruiting cycle with Nico Iamaleava. And then number 2 in 2023-24 here with Dylan Raiola choosing the Dawgs. So back-to-back SEC East teams landing the number 1 overall player here. They don't get Arch. They go all in on Arch Manning last year, that being the Dawgs. And then they come back here, and it feels like forever ago. You get Ryan, what is it, Puglisi? What is
Puglisi,
it? Yeah, the Northeastern kid who's a 4-star, top 10 player. It's not like he's anything
or top 10 quarterback, but
yeah,
I think he's like the 6th or 7th ranked quarterback. I'll have to look at that.
And he's sticking around. He's not shaken from the competition right out of the gate there. But then you add Dylan Raiola, where it looked like it was going to come down to either Nebraska, obviously with the family connections, or Georgia. And then there was some USC buzz if he stayed on the West Coast. That obviously always being in play there. But Matt Green, what does this mean for Georgia? What does this mean for the quarterback room going forward? And how does this change the calculus? Because you and I have been talking about this back and forth about what Georgia landing a true number 1 game changer, Bryce Young, Nico Iamaleava type prospect to an already loaded.
We throwing Nico in there with Bryce Young.
Yeah, I mean, Nico
the all-time
is right
greats like Deshaun Watson.
No, I'm
Trevor
saying all-time great.
Nico.
Well, no, what I'm saying is like the 5-star number 1 overall player in its class, like just the pedigree, like the expectation that you're going to be a Heisman type quarterback and future number 1 overall pick or top 10 pick, whatever that case may be, that we haven't seen at Georgia really, because you can't really throw Fields in there because we didn't see it. You can't really, like, it's Stafford. Like, this is the biggest signing, or not signing because he hasn't signed yet. This is the biggest commitment since Matthew Stafford, right?
Well, I think Justin Fields is definitely massive because, like, that's obviously what was supposed to happen with Justin Fields. Like, if you look at his Ohio State career and what he is now in the NFL, he was the number 1 or number 2 overall player. So Justin Fields is definitely up there, but obviously it didn't work out. So, yeah, I mean, getting Raiola is just massive because, like, that's basically the one thing that Kirby is quote unquote missing. Like, that's like kind of the one narrative out there of like what Georgia hasn't done is, yeah, but their offense isn't fun for a quarterback and a wide receiver. So that's why they haven't necessarily gotten the legit 5-star receivers in recent classes. But you land a guy like Dylan Raiola, and even after, especially after Todd Monken goes to the NFL, like this is Mike Bobo is a huge part of this. Like I thought that was pretty telling. Like back in like December or even November, where he was saying like he already knew what the plan was at Georgia. When Todd Monken was going, like he knew that the replacement was already on staff. So just the level of connection he's had with Georgia staff to know kind of what for their future offensive coordinator plans are. And according to Rusty Mansell, it's like he's already been recruiting for Georgia for months. But I think that's why it's so massive, because you look at Georgia, the last 2 classes, they've signed 15 top 50 players in the last 2 classes combined. 13 of those were on defense, and the other 2 were offensive linemen. It's like that's what Georgia is. They're dominant in the trenches, offensive and defensive side of the ball, and then we know they're just getting elite players after elite players on defense. So the only thing that's been missing is like that truly elite quarterback and the elite weapons at wide receiver. Like George Pickens was an elite wide receiver, but you know, with just kind of the timing of his career of like probably Fromm's, he was a freshman in Fromm's last year, and then the bad quarterback play in 2020, and then he was hurt in 2021. You never actually got to see him be elite for Georgia, but he was that guy. So it's not like Georgia hasn't recruited big time wide receiver. Mecole Hardman was a 5-star. Like Terry Godwin may have been a 5-star by some people, like a very highly ranked receiver, but you haven't seen that guy that's been a 1st rounder. You know, Pickens, what I think would have been that had he been healthy and everything, but get it to. So you've seen, Jacob Eason and Justin Fields come to Georgia, and JT Daniels, another 5-star that like haven't played, but it's also like it hasn't been. They have been missing something at quarterback in a couple years, but for the most part, Georgia's gotten good quarterback play. So it's like they haven't necessarily been missing out, at the quarterback position. But what they haven't had is that true just difference maker that's going to elevate everybody else. And that's what Raiola has the potential to be. It's like you could talk about like, oh, what does this do to the quarterback room and that sort of thing. But I don't really think it matters because you just look at what Georgia's established now. It's like I don't want to jump the gun and say they're the new Alabama. Like everybody is saying that, and they obviously appear to be like the dominant program coming up in college football. So that's what they are, and so I think you can justify like, hey, could wait 2 or 3 years going there and get a chance to play and be the guy at that school that's number one. So I think if Raiola comes in, like, I think what complicates things, maybe if Beck doesn't have like a great year and then he is back in 2024, and then you got like all 4 of those, like something's got to give, and there's going to be some sort of, transfers and stuff in that room. But I think you just got to get the guys on campus and see what happens from there.
Yeah, I mean, if Beck doesn't work out, he's out. He's somewhere else, and he's probably playing at SMU or something and lighting it up and doing that sort of thing, doing the JT Daniels type deal. But I just look at it and look, it's going to have obviously, it's funny to me when I see people, and look, maybe there is a difference between having the best class, a great class and the best class in Georgia history because you bring in Dylan, right? Where they're on pace, and we'll see how things stand. They're going to need to do some flipping, potentially like with Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State. Like you're probably going to need to flip him. Mike Matthews, all the reporting there is that he's not staying in Georgia, that he's probably going to end up at USC or Tennessee. One of the two there is what that looks like. And then Jaden Riddell, a big battle between Tennessee and Georgia. So when you listen to the reports, it seems like it's going to come down to those two and who he picks there. But Ryan Wingo, obviously, in a good spot for them. They're obviously loaded in the running back room. They're loaded in the secondary with Bolden and company. Sammy Brown talked about it. And like, I think he said, I was reading a AJC Dog Nation quote from him, the 5-star linebacker out of Jefferson, who's probably going to end up at Georgia or Clemson. He sees himself as the quarterback of the defense, as the linebacker, which is by and large true. And then like, that would be cool to compete with a quarterback like Dylan Raiola in practice, just the two iron sharpen iron type deal. So it's obviously a big get. And you spoke to something that I think is actually kind of interesting too, which is that Bobo was a great recruiter at Georgia. And that's something that was overlooked. Like I have questions about what he's going to be like 10 years from being an elite, putting together elite offenses at Georgia. Like I have questions because we joke about like the Auburn, South Carolina, and Colorado State stuff, but like, it is fair to wonder, like
Colorado State now they put up some numbers offensively though.
Not down the stretch, not at the end.
They had some receivers that were putting up some huge seasons though.
Yeah, for sure. But by and large, we have not seen elite offensive play caller Mike Bobo in a while. That does not mean that the man forgot how to recruit and that the man does not have cachet on the recruiting trail. And it's kind of different than what Todd Monken had, where Todd Monken's was in the NFL for a while. Todd Monken always had these NFL connections. The appeal to play for Todd Monken was like, he might get you the league. We're going to revamp this offense. Like just a different kind of mind in Athens and more of an NFL kind of mind. Bobo is all college all the time. You could see him just recruiting really well. And obviously Stafford, Aaron Murray, you forget it's a 5-star. Like he had a lot of success bringing in top tier quarterback talent in Athens. And that was something that you did not, even if you had questions about what Georgia's, and when you say questions, it's like, could they go to number 9 in offense and scoring offense next year with Bobo? Could they go to 8? And what does that mean if they're at 8? Are they a little bit more vulnerable if there's a little bit of a drop off, whatever, because they're not going to fall off a cliff. There's just no path for something like that to happen. The James Coley era is long gone.
Are you saying 9th or the 8th or 9th ranked offense is bad?
No, I'm saying like that's like the floor. That's like the floor for even Bobo.
That's
struggling.
like 40 points a game. Like
yeah, So like that's what I'm saying.
If Georgia's
But
averaging 40 points a game, I think they're going undefeated.
well, if Bobo's not like, it's gonna be one of those things where it's like they don't like. I think Graham Coffey made this good point where Todd Monken was elite at pressing the right buttons late, and he was elite in those important moments, and like what Todd Monken did in the Ohio State game, and like some of the stuff that he was calling, and some of the like, there's just something that in the biggest of big moments, that's where it shows up, is what Todd Monken was able to do, carving up certain defenses, and like we'll see if Bobo is able to press the same buttons, because you can make the case that Todd Monken is one of the two best offensive coordinators in the sport in the last 2 years. And
no, I think that's definitely true. Like with Todd Monken, he was an elite offensive coordinator, but I don't think Bobo ever got the credit initially that he deserved. And it's like Mike Bobo should be a beloved figure in Georgia football history, right? Like this guy he started at quarterback for a couple years at Georgia, like wasn't great years or anything, had an iconic win over a Spurrier team. Then he was a Broyles Award finalist as an assistant coach at Georgia, as a assistant coach for 10, 15 years or so at the University of Georgia. So like this guy should be a beloved figure. And I think Kirby Smart is like basically going to like revitalize the way Mike Bobo is perceived from University of Georgia fans, honestly, because you just look, Georgia's a completely different program now than they were like when Bobo was here the first time. Like obviously they had plenty of talent on offense. He had Stafford and Noshawn, AJ Green, and the teams with Murray and Todd Gurley, Keith Marshall. Like they had all kinds of weapons. But you look at the Mark Richt era, Georgia signed, and obviously some of this is on offense, some of this on offense and defense. So it's just a cumulative, but it just speaks to the level of talent that Georgia currently has compared to what they used to have. In 15 years under Mark Richt, Georgia signed 27 5-stars. In 8 years under Kirby Smart, they've signed 36 5-stars. Half the time and almost 10 more 5-stars. They got 3 committed already in 2024, and they have 4 committed in 2025. Like, I just saw a graphic that 5 of the top 8 players committed anywhere in the 2025 class are committed to Georgia. Like, it's absurd just the level of talent that Georgia has at this point. And when you, like, the biggest thing that Mark Richt's teams didn't have was the elite offensive line play. Like there was the year like 2011 where they loved to show the stat, almost like the Jake Fromm Little League World Series stat, that they had the biggest offensive line in all of football. Like their average weight was bigger than any NFL team. They were like average like 330 or something across the board. It's like, cool, we're playing in the Capital One Bowl, so that doesn't mean that much. Like, yeah, we have a really heavy offensive line, but I don't think Georgia.
In 2020, Tennessee only started 5-5-stars in the offensive line.
Yeah, and that's a fun fact for you.
But here's the thing: the offense still sucked.
Yeah, I mean the actual talent is what matters. So you just look at what they were. I don't think Georgia had one first-round pick at offensive line the entire time Mark Richt was the head coach. Like that seems almost impossible. Like you'll just luck out and you'll just luck into a first-round pick at some point. Like you've already seen. Georgia's had 4 or 5 first-round picks since Kirby got there. I know Isaiah Wynn, Andrew Thomas, Isaiah Wilson, Broderick Jones in this last class, at least 4. So it's just the offensive line is at a whole nother level. Like the running backs might not be at the Todd Gurley, Noshawn level, but they're good enough. The receivers are better than they've ever been collectively, as like top to bottom they've been. The tight end is the best it's ever been in school history. So the offense is just absolutely loaded, and Bobo is a good play caller. And with the talent we have offensively, like even if he wasn't the best guy for the job, like I don't think there's many people that could screw this up, to be honest.
I think it's just one of those things too. It's not like I'm salivating over Tommy Rees versus Josh Heupel. Like I really am come this fall. Like I'm excited for what that battle looks like and just what that could mean for Tennessee. Like, but Georgia was just Todd Monken. You can make the case was better than Heupel, even as an offensive mind. I think Heupel is a better offensive mind than Mike Bobo. So I am curious because Mike Bobo will have more talent than he's ever had in Athens. If there is what that Tennessee game looks like in Neyland this fall and what Bobo brings to the table and how much of the Georgia offense changes. Like, that's the other thing is like there's now the Georgia offense, right? That's what I hear from all the Georgia folks who are well more connected than me, is that there is now a plan. Like, this is the offense. And you hear that too with Saban. I just don't believe it the same, where it's like, he's going to be running the Saban offense. I'm like, no, like, you were not going to hire Ryan Grubb from Washington and what they were running and then go to Tommy Rees and be like, they were going to come in and run the same thing Nick Saban wanted to do and like run the Saban offense. No, it means you were trying to find somebody to run this offense because you didn't think you'd have to replace Bill O'Brien. And you were like, whatever you want to do. Like, it's just, I don't buy that. I do think that it's going to be hard outside of the tape grinders to tell the difference between what Georgia's offense looks like most weeks this fall versus what we've seen the last couple of years. I think it shows up in the big games, and I think it shows up against Tennessee. I think it shows up against, and we'll see if it's better, because there's a possibility too. You have to, like, that's a possibility that it is better than what we've seen before, because Carson Beck is more talented than Stetson, and there is a possibility that he is better than Stetson altogether. There's a possibility that he sucks out of the gate, and there's like a DeJuan Mathis type situation, and then Brock Vandagriff comes in and he's a Heisman type guy right out of the gate, and then he's better than any of these guys. So there's all kinds of possibilities there for this Georgia offense, and I'm just very curious to see how it all looks. Like, I am excited to see what this all means, but Georgia fans, and this is something that you and I have argued about back and forth with Matt Green, and this is something that, because it's not like we're arguing, like we're not getting mad about it. It's just, I will roll my eyes when I see stuff on Twitter when it comes to this Georgia stuff. Some of it, and it's just, Dylan Raiola could be a great quarterback. He could be a great Georgia quarterback first round. He could have a Bryce Young 2 years in Athens. Here's the thing. You're not going to get, it's just going to be very hard pressed to have a better season than what Stetson did last year with this Georgia offense. And when I think about like being nervous about playing Georgia and Tennessee and what keeps Josh Heupel and this Tennessee staff up late thinking about the Dawgs and how they can beat the Dawgs and get over that hump, what they're not thinking about is the quarterback play. They were not worried about Bryce Young. They were worried about Will Anderson. They were worried about Dallas Turner. They were worried about what Alabama did in the trenches. That's where things change. When JJ Crawford's out here throwing up and using it as motivation against the Alabama defensive line, you're like, oh, they're in this. Like, they can handle this. They have a shot. What separates Georgia from everybody else, and what keeps the Heupels of the world up at night, is not the quarterback play. It's not that. It's the 5 stars on the edge. It's the Samuel Mpimbas. It's the dudes, the Jalen Carters, the Trayvon Walkers. It's guys like that. When you have John Campbell, a 3-star, now 4-star transfer from Miami at left tackle, you have potentially Gerald Mincey, 3-star right offensive tackle transfer from Florida, and those spots. And you're getting okay guys there. You have some, like, there's some okay guys. Like, you're developing pretty well. Glenn Ellerby's a good offensive line coach, but you don't have the 5-star offensive lineman right now. And that's not really what's happening. There aren't a lot of them. That's something that a lot of people miss. It's like, you go through the rankings, there aren't a lot of 5-star offensive tackles out there. Very few, actually. So they're really, really hard to get. And most of them don't live and grow up in the state of Tennessee, like Trey Smith. So that is what keeps them up. That is what we're worried about, is like Georgia having those guys year over year. Because, like, is there going to be a way for that defensive line and even the linebacker room? It's just really the front 7. Is there a path to Tennessee getting over that hump for 4 quarters with what Georgia is throwing at them with their front 7? Like, that is the big thing. Like, there are gaps in the secondary. Keely Ringo has had some really bad games against Georgia. Like, they've had 5-star secondaries. We can go back. I pulled it up a couple weeks ago. Keely Ringo was bad in both Tennessee games. You can go back through it. They have been burned.
Last year's Tennessee game?
Yeah, we went up. He had like a 60. He had a 60 PFF grade. He only had one pick.
I don't know.
He gave up a reception on every other play outside of that one pick. Like, that's what people remember, but it's like, that's not what's happening. He was getting flagged.
I just don't remember Tennessee's offense doing very much. So
I'm not disagreeing. What I am saying is Keely Ringo specifically was not good in that game. What I'm also saying is that's not the nervousness. Like, Tennessee is putting dudes in the NFL year over year, most amount of wide receivers in the NFL the last 4 to 5 years. So that is going to be a thing. There's talent everywhere in the wide receiver room. They're not worried there. The quarterback play is going to be elite year over year. Tennessee's going to have a top 10 offense. That's going to be it. Bryce Young played the game of his life against Tennessee and Neyland last year. They still lost.
Bro, that's how Bryce Young plays. Like, if anything,
Dylan Raiola could play that kind of game, and that's not a concern for the big dogs. What the concern is...
that's where you lose me, because Georgia has everything else. There's not going to be a point where Georgia, assuming nothing drastic changes, there's not going to be a point where Georgia doesn't have elite players at every single level of their defense. Because, like, say what you want about their corners, like in 2022 or 2021 or something, but I mean, Darian Kendrick was very good and Keely Ringo was very good on the other side, but like Eric Stokes was an All-American first-round pick. DeAndre Baker was a Thorpe Award winner, first-round pick. Tyson Campbell was like the second pick of the second round.
For sure. Like, what I'm saying is like it's a wash with the receivers at Tennessee.
They produced elite players at every single level of the defense. Lewis Cine was a first-round pick.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, so every single level has been elite, and so that's just like the accepted. Like, yeah, Georgia's going to have, since 2019. They've had like a top 3 scoring defense in college football like every season. So the only thing that's been a question that's held Georgia back was quarterback play. So if this team is actually going to get elite quarterback and the elite receivers like Jeremiah Smith, and he's the number 1 receiver for 2024, and then the number 1 receiver for 2025 that's committed to Alabama right now, like they're both going to be visiting this weekend, the same weekend as Dylan Raiola. Like, that's the type of thing that's going to, like, because there's a prerequisite for what the defense is going to do, basically, like a baseline. So if the offense is also capable of just dropping 50 on you as well, like how are you going to beat Georgia? Like, it should terrify
we get Glenn
everyone.
Schumann out of there. We got one more year before he gets a big boy job, and thankfully,
and then you got Will Muschamp running.
Yeah, we're not worried about Will Muschamp.
Will Muschamp is maybe the best defensive coordinator in all of college football.
We're not. Whoa.
Am I wrong?
Whoa.
Look at this man's track record. That's why he went from being a DC to the head coach in waiting at Texas to getting the Florida job. Like, that's why Will Muschamp was what he was. And he learned under Saban, just like Kirby. Like,
this is a take.
I mean,
Ryan Walters was better last year. Do you think
Georgia is going to go down at all when Glenn Schumann leaves? Like, it didn't.
I think
change
there will be a
Mel
drop.
Tucker
Yes,
left.
I think Glenn Schumann.
It didn't change when Dan Lanning left. It's not going to change. Like, this is Kirby's defense, and Muschamp also seems like the kind of guy like Bobo. Once he gets that coordinator job, he might just be satisfied with for the rest of his career as the DC in Athens. Like,
who, Muschamp?
I think
for sure.
Possible.
I think this is it for him.
So I think that's the long-term plan. So I think Georgia's in a pretty good spot. Like, I think Schumann is probably going to pull a Kirby and pretty much just wait as long as he can for that, like, big-time SEC job to open up. Like, not have to go take a Colorado State or something like Bobo did. Like, I think Schumann's just buying his time. Like, Mel Tucker got a Power 5 job. Dan Lanning got a Power 5 job. Like, Glenn Schumann should get the same, but I think Georgia should still be fine for the foreseeable future on the defensive side of the ball.
But what I'm saying, and I understand there's talent in the secondary. What I am saying is there is just as much talent, NFL talent, out wide for Tennessee. Like, and that is not a concern. It's like Tennessee.
I don't think that's true. I mean, you look in the NFL, like, both of those guys were 3rd-round picks this year, right? Like, maybe that's the difference in Tennessee's offense. It's like Tennessee had an elite offense, but they didn't have an elite, like, 1st-round pick quarterback.
Brew McCoy is right now, if he has just the normal season, what you're expecting, he's a 1st-round guy next year.
I mean, it's possible for sure, but I mean, we thought that about Jalen Hyatt
last year he came in, there was huge unknowns with Jalen Hyatt. And
we thought that about Cedric Tillman.
Cedric Tillman was a 3-star.
Okay, but he was people definitely thought he could be a 1st-round pick going into 2022.
I mean, he was hurt all of last year.
For sure, but I'm saying Tennessee hasn't gotten the elite of the elite players, and maybe that's the only, like, that's what Alabama's done.
Well,
like, Alabama's running that big time up tempo offense with Henry Ruggs, with Devontae Smith, with Calvin Ridley, with Amari Cooper, with Jalen
Mike
Waddle.
Matthews and Amari Jefferson might just be in this class for Tennessee. But
I'm saying that's the difference. And so that's I feel like how I would compare Georgia to Tennessee. Like, Stetson Bennett Jake Fromm was a really highly ranked quarterback too, but it wasn't like elite quarterback play. It was good quarterback play. Stetson Bennett played very well, but that's where you lose me too. Like, Georgia's never going to have a better 2022 than Stetson Bennett. Like, I feel like people didn't even agree that he was a good player. Like, people still don't agree that this guy's a good player. Like, it's so weird.
I mean,
like
he was a Heisman finalist, and you look at Saban, right? How many?
But a
does
lot
Saban
of people
have?
thought he didn't deserve to be. I feel like the more common
I
opinion
mean, he
is that
probably
didn't
wouldn't have
deserve
made
to
it
be
if
a
Hendon
Heisman
didn't get
finalist.
hurt. I think Hendon probably gets that spot if he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 4th round pick. Like, the ceiling gets way higher than Stetson Bennett. With all due respect to Stetson Bennett, like, we all know that he's not the most talented guy. He played very well, and he obviously scrambles, and his legs are a huge part of
But there
his
will be no
game.
one who breaks what Stetson did over that 2-year stretch in Georgia history. Like, in our lifetime, no one will have a better 2-year run.
In like a sentimental way?
No, just in dominance, like, and
Because
leading.
2021, he was a little shaky for like half of the season. Like, he was fine, but he wasn't great in 20. I mean, after the SEC championship, most people didn't want him to start the Michigan game.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that.
A good portion of the fan base was.
Bryce Young didn't win a title at Alabama.
The jury was still out.
Mac Jones did. There are guys.
But I take exception with that. Mac Jones was elite as hell at Alabama. Like, he.
But
had
look
like
at who has won at Alabama.
Winner.
And look at some of the teams.
He completed like 80% of his passes or something. His numbers were insane. Like 40.
But what I'm saying, he wasn't Bryce Young. Bryce Young went number 1 overall. He was clear-cut the best quarterback in the country this past year. Like, it's different. It just doesn't mean you can have the guy. It doesn't mean you're going to keep winning.
What did Mac Jones go, like 14 overall?
Yeah.
Like 12? Like,
it's a big difference.
He's a first rounder. But I'm saying Stetson was a 4th rounder. Like, and some people act like he shouldn't have been drafted at all. So,
I am saying is, like, I am not more worried about Georgia with an elite quarterback than what I was before. What I am worried about, and what folks
was your worry about Georgia already at like a maximum 100? Like, you couldn't be more scared of them?
No, because it's like, I mean, you saw the path. Like, Tennessee just beat Alabama with 5 stars everywhere on this defense. Like, they can do it.
Georgia was way better than Alabama in 2022.
We never saw them play each other, though. I would have loved to.
I think they were a significantly better team. We saw what Georgia did to you saw the LSU and Tennessee games. Like, those are pretty good, like, barometers. Like, those games were completely different.
I'm not disagreeing, but I'm saying if we never saw it. Like, we can't say for certain how those games are.
Statistically, yeah, of course we can't. But I mean, the way we judge the sport, Georgia was significantly better. Alabama wasn't the gold standard last year.
No,
like, you beat
they lost 2 games by combined 4 points.
Of course, but LSU also lost like 4 games, and they lost to that team. So I'm just saying, like, Alabama is typically the gold standard, and how you played against them, you're like, well, we did this against Alabama, we can do that against anybody. That's
at home,
typically been the case.
Like, we'll see.
But now Georgia's better, so it, like, you saw.
Maybe we don't know.
I mean, you saw what that offense.
We knew what Stetson was, right? Like, Carson Beck is still an unknown. Last year in 2020, like, it's really hard to just keep hitting over and over again. Like, their 3-peats are just unheard of, right? Like, that's just not. Sure. We're in uncharted waters here. Like, you should bet against Georgia this year because 3-peats are just.
Well,
like, we see a 3-peat, and then you know what happens next year? The 12-team playoff, where Georgia might have to go SEC title game, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio, like Clemson,
but anyone will.
But that's what I'm saying. So it's like they're just going to be the most talented most years. Like, that's what we're looking at, is Georgia's going to be the most talented.
The 12-team playoff, that throws a whole nother wrench into it. But I'm saying what's unlikely is the 3-peat is definitely unlikely, but what's most unlikely is building a roster that's as loaded as Georgia and not being decimated by the transfer portal. Guys actually waiting their turn, wait 2-3 years to earn their spot and then play. Like, in today's age of college football, like, that just doesn't happen. And so Georgia's just built with just like the most solid foundation of any program right now. It's like that's the unlikely part, because usually you have to get that Deshaun Watson that maybe elevates what the entire program is, you know, and maybe you're not elite at every position. Obviously Clemson was really good. They were a great team, but Deshaun Watson made them better. Like, they didn't have the consistent top 3-4 classes for years and years. It was the quarterback that was that X factor, you know, and Georgia didn't even need the quarterback to elevate them. So now that they potentially could have it, it's like, how do they lose? Like, that's almost how I would feel if I was a fan of another college football team.
Yeah. We'll see. And do you know who didn't offer Dylan Raiola?
Who's that?
The Tennessee Volunteers.
Well, that was a questionable decision.
I don't know. Nico is already
But
in the building.
I honestly think this could be I don't have the tweet right in front of me, but someone went on Feinbaum today, some college football reporter, and said this 2024 class could be the highest ranked class of all time. So
we just did that last year with Bama.
And I think Georgia, that's what they're about to do. Like with the state of Georgia alone, I think there's like 15 top 100 players in the state of Georgia, and like 4 or 5 of them are committed to Georgia already. But
7 of them are from like Langston Hughes and Colquitt County.
And it's like at this point, like that's just not the only place Georgia recruits either. Like if honestly through the years, you look at some of the, like as much as they love to lock down the state of Georgia, like a lot of the elite players that have come through Georgia weren't from the state. You have Stafford and Aaron Murray, and Todd Gurley. Like there's AJ Green. There's been a lot of Sean Marino. So you look at Raoila, or Raiola. I'm gonna have to get used to that at some point. So it's you can't really not remove Georgia from getting anybody in this class. Like the number 1 receiver in the country who people are saying, like I heard Rusty Mansell say that like the opinion on Jeremiah Smith, that he's basically the best receiver to come out in the last 10 years. He's currently committed to Ohio State, of course, but like they've compared him to AJ Green, like to Julio Jones. So this guy is just super big time. And obviously Georgia, he's not committed to Georgia or anything, but if they're able to snag a guy like that and Raiola, it's going to have a huge domino effect on this class, and elite players are going to want to play with him. I didn't even mention Ryan Wingo, and he's another big time 5-star. So it's this class is going to be ridiculous. I think right now they're numerical score in the 24/7 composite ranking. It's equivalent to what was the 16th ranked class in the 2023 class. And that's with 12 commits, 7-8 months till signing day. It's going to be a stupid class that they're going to put together. They could end up with 10, 15, top 50 players, honestly.
Who cares? We're in the blue chip ratio. You're on Rocky Top. That's all we care about. But we'll see. Good things ahead. You're not going to believe this, folks. The 2-time defending national champions are in good shape in the college football landscape.
It is interesting to hear you say that, we're never going to have a better season. A quarterback's never going to have a better season than Stetson in 2022. That's what blows my mind.
I think it just continues. And Saban, he had the 2, and then he had the blip, and then he had that 3rd one, and then he had some time away, and then you just had what?
They had a blip where they go 2 seasons without winning a national championship.
Maybe 3.
They won what? 09.
And then they
11,
it was
12,
2006 though, wasn't it? Wasn't there
15,
a gap from 2006 to 2009?
No, he wasn't. 2007 was his first year. So I'm saying he was 3rd full season. He won a championship. Then won 2 years later, went back to back. Then
09, 11, 12, 15, and then nothing until 17. 15. But there was a 2-year gap and then a 3-year gap. What I'm saying is
winning a national championship.
But that's what I'm saying. So when people are Georgia's going to keep running roughshod, that's what I'm saying. Is it's just probably not they're going to be the most. What they have built is this sustainability to be the best team each and every year for the next couple of years. At the bare minimum, is they're going to be the most talented team on any given Saturday for the next couple of years. But what that does not mean is that they are just going to keep running roughshod over the college football landscape, especially as we see more and more of the Power 2 come into focus, which is there's going to be a lot of top tier talent at a very select number of schools. And there's just going to be, they're going to get upset. There's going to be times where they do, and they're going to miss on some of these quarterbacks. They're one of these quarterbacks is going to be bad, and they're going to have to make a change. It's not like they're just going to keep going. It's going to happen.
When's the last time Alabama had a bad quarterback, though?
I mean, Blake Sims wasn't good.
We're going back 9 years. That's what we got. Blake Sims, I think, led the SEC in touchdowns too.
But he was. You gotta go. I mean, there have been some times.
I feel like they basically had good.
AJ McCarron wasn't good.
AJ McCarron wasn't good.
He was fine.
He was overrated.
It was the running back.
He should have been a Heisman finalist, but AJ McCarron was very good. Super efficient. He's exactly what they needed. I'm just saying, Alabama, when you're surrounded with a roster like that, which Georgia might be now, the Georgia quarterback might be now, like I think you're there's no reason why you can't just have good quarterback play year after year. Like you had to look at what had to happen for 2020 for the quarterback play to go bad. Like Jake Fromm, kind of unexpectedly left early. Jamie Newman transfers and decides not to play. Like Dwan Mathis is just
weird things happen in this sport, man.
Like you had to go like 4 deep at quarterback. I'm just saying that kind of
like
stuff.
There's a real chance Dylan Raiola never plays for Georgia. There is a real chance he never plays.
Of course, but don't you think the most likely scenario of Dylan Raiola not playing is because Georgia's getting really good quarterback play from somebody else? Because
it's going to be Gunner. I don't know why we do this to ourselves. It's going to be the 4-star himself, Mike Bobo's.
But it's like, who cares? I don't care if Dylan Raiola never plays a down for Georgia. If Gunner Stockton is like a 2-time All-American or something, or all-conference quarterback, like all that any Georgia fan wants is to have good quarterback play.
No, they do not. Georgia fans were upset the whole Jake Fromm run. Georgia fans wanted Justin Fields and were upset about how that was handled for years, Matt Green. And they were upset with how JT Daniels was handled for years. Georgia fans would absolutely prefer and would be upset if the 5-star quarterback stuff still does not pan out, because they get excited. They want to see it. Georgia fans were upset about JT, and they were upset about Justin Fields. The people that
were upset about the quarterback play in 2018 are just dumb. Like Jake Fromm was one of the best quarterbacks in college football.
I'm not. That can be true, but would you not say there was a significant portion of the fan base that was upset about it?
Well, they wanted to see the shiny new toy of Justin Fields, but I'm saying 2018, and especially in the biggest games like versus Alabama, like Jake Fromm was great. So 2019, when the offense was bad and Justin Fields is over here, a Heisman finalist, yeah, you're pissed because you're not getting good quarterback play that year. But if you have great quarterback play, like you don't care of what guys going where, like you're just worried about yourself.
You have to be elite, where they're not looking over their shoulders. Where fans are like, yeah, Gunner's fine, but like we have Dylan, we have the Mustang still just sitting there. What are we doing?
But if Gunner Stockton is outplaying Raiola, like that's the detail that no one focuses on. Like then he's outplaying him, then he's probably balling out. So
like Tennessee fans are going to lose their mind if Jake Merklinger is like has to come in because Nico gets hurt next year or something, and Jake, the 4-star Savannah kid, is like solid in Heupel's offense, and you're like, we can't go back.
Like think about the Seahawks when they signed Matt Flynn, like they gave him a bunch of money and then drafted Russell Wilson in like the 3rd round, and then Matt Flynn lost the job in training camp. Were Seahawks fans upset? Like, oh, the quarterback we paid all the money to.
Yes, they were.
Playing. Not when they're getting good quarterback play. You saw,
but they were upset about how they spent the money, and they were like, "What are we doing?" Like they were upset, and like Georgia fans will be upset.
There's salary cap issues, but so that's a bad example. But you know what I mean. The end result, but also in that situation, it didn't matter. It's like, well, just pretend you're paying this money to Russell Wilson, and it's worth it, right? So you're getting that amount of money's worth of quarterback play.
But it wouldn't bother you at all like if you don't have a 5-star that breaks through. No,
hell no. All I want is Georgia to have a good quarterback. Like that's, and it's not like I just want Georgia to have a game manager quarterback. Like I want Georgia to have the best quarterback play possible. And if we're having a guy who's putting up all SEC type numbers, then that's all that I want as a fan of that team. If Ryan Puglisi comes in and is just flat out better than Raiola from day one, like that, I will lose absolutely no sleep over that. Like I don't understand why anyone would.
Interesting.
Like, would you like why? I don't know why people are so obsessed with the star rating. I think what you're saying is why people just never accepted that Stetson Bennett was a good quarterback, as the high school star rating. It's like, it only matters so much. What really matters is what's on the field. Like JT Daniels was a 5-star, Stetson Bennett wasn't. And I watched both of them play a good number of snaps at Georgia, and Stetson Bennett was significantly better than JT Daniels was. Like, so the high school ranking just doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, you just want your team to have a good quarterback.
I just don't think that's how fans' brains work.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like if it's another like Jacob Eason, Jake Fromm situation, like And like it's just crazy to me that anyone looks at that scenario as like a what if. Like Justin Fields, I'm with you. Like, yeah, what could Georgia have been with Justin
5-star
Fields?
what ifs in the Kirby era that have all not worked out.
But Jacob Eason, but how does that not work out? Like Jake Fromm was better than Jacob Eason. Like,
I think it's because
okay,
of the untapped potential, where it's like there's nothing more fun than a 5-star, like the Bryce Youngs of the world. Those are fun.
Rivals had Fromm as a 5-star too.
Oh, here we
so
go.
like, don't forget that. Like he was like, regardless of what the ranking was, Fromm was like the 30th, 40th ranked player coming out of high school. He was super big time. So he panned out and Jacob Eason didn't. Like you can only have one quarterback. And honestly, Jake Fromm was better at every level than Jacob Eason. Like he when he went to Washington, like Jacob Eason was still better than Eason was in Washington. He just had more pro style tools or whatever, and was drafted at like a couple picks higher. But
he's still in the league though. He's still getting them checks.
Yeah, but he's the little bit he's played, he's been terrible. So it's like the little bit Fromm has played, he's looked terrible. So it's not like Eason is ever at any point proven to be a better player than Jake Fromm. Like
it's just not like Heupel, where Heupel identifies Jordan Love at Utah State, identifies Drew Lock at Mizzou, Sam Bradford at Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel at UCF, Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee, where you just know the 5-star is going to work out with your coach. But then you have other situations where you're like, man, I get the underdog story is cool, but like I do think there are going to be Georgia fans that
Jacob Fromm was not an underdog though.
He was seen as that.
He was committed to Alabama, and then
I'm not disagreeing, but the narrative was
he
was a game manager in Georgia's fans' minds forever. He will be looked at as like a Hudson Mason type, 1,000%.
No, he
forever.
was so much. That's an ignorant Georgia.
I'm not disagreeing, but I'm saying if we went to Athens right now and we just polled some Georgia fans, would you not think that would be the more common answer if we were to ask them about how they remember Jake Fromm as a quarterback?
I mean, if you're saying, is he closer to Hudson Mason or Matthew Stafford?
Yes.
Then yeah, maybe he's closer. Honestly, he was better at Georgia than Stafford was. Like Jake Fromm
I'm not disagreeing, Matt Green. What I am saying is fans don't want that.
But that doesn't mean that that's accurate just because some man on the street people think it is. Like, those are some of the worst answers ever. Haven't you ever seen Jay Leno?
But that's going to be Twitter.com for the next couple years. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like,
but that doesn't matter. Like, JT Daniels, so you think there's any regret at all? It's like, Georgia fans.
2021, yes.
I wish JT Daniels would have played more snaps at Georgia.
That's in 2021, yes. Because Georgia fans are upset about the injury
you're like,
questions.
Stetson won us 2 natties. You're not losing 1 second of sleep over what
there's
JT
a what if of like, man,
does.
The best version of JT was fun. He was huge. He was
the best version of Stetson wasn't fun.
Not in 2021.
But you're making my point, my previous point for me that the Georgia's quarterback play can get a lot higher than Stetson because most people didn't even think he was that good in 2021.
But I think in 2022,
and now it's how do they replace him? So, but JT Daniels was not as good as Stetson, regardless. Like he had some good games. Like the Clemson game, Georgia's offense scored 3 points. Like we didn't really do any. He didn't really do it. He was also hurt all the time. Like whatever was going on. So Stetson Bennett, like
what I'm saying is fans want the 5-stars. They want the superstar. Like there's nothing better than having the franchise superstar quarterback that can do it all. That can save you, that can bail you out, that you just feel like
Georgia fans also hated on Matthew Stafford. Georgia fans also hated on Matthew Stafford.
No, Georgia fans love Matthew Stafford.
No, 100%.
They hated on Murray way more than Stafford.
Well, they did exactly. So that shows you everything you need to know about Georgia fans' perception on the quarterback. Those are like you named like the 3 best quarterbacks you've ever had, and honestly 4 if you count in Stetson in there too. Like. And the jury was basically out on all of them. Like, and fans weren't sold on like any of them until their last year on campus. And the 2008 was just such the preseason number 1, and there was such a disappointing year that like Stafford gets like thrown in there. Like, oh, he's got the pro tools, but he wasn't like a winner type of thing. Like I promise you, there was plenty of Georgia fans that just weren't like huge Stafford fans. Like I never understood it. Like because I was the biggest Stafford fan, and he just. Obviously, he's the real deal. He's played like 15 years in the NFL or however long he's been in. But yeah, so that might not be the best barometer what some Georgia fans would say on the street. Because Jake Fromm was real. I don't know how we even got on Jake Fromm, but it's just that whole, and if that's the last narrative there is to be put to bed by Kirby Smart, then so be it. And for that reason alone, I want Raiola to work out and be a Heisman, fucking win the damn Heisman, and be a first round pick. And then so there's just literally nothing else anyone can say to question anything about Kirby Smart, because that's the last one left.
But I think it's something fans everywhere want. They just love the Heisman superstar quarterback. It's just this sport is so it revolves around elite quarterback play so much, and there's so much enjoyment about having that elite top 10 quarterback and having the do it all type of dude that you feel like you're never out of any game, and you just feel like you're just watching something special week in, week out. And you're like, my team's got a like, that's the reason the NFL, one of the major reasons the NFL kicks the crap out of everybody, is that when you have your franchise guy, like Bengals fans are just, they waited for so long. Patrick Mahomes and Casey, knowing you have this dude for the next 10 years, just keeping you in every game, winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl. Like, when you have that franchise quarterback in today's world, like, there's just nothing better. There's nothing better as a sports fan than your team having the franchise superstar guy.
But does his high school rating
without
matter?
The franchise guy, winning without winning with Alex Smith doesn't feel as sweet as winning with Patrick Mahomes. It just doesn't.
See, but I feel like you're misconfusing my point to think that I don't want elite quarterback play. Like, I want the elite quarterback play. I'm just saying I don't care what his star rating is coming out of high school. And if you're getting that, like, and that's why Ohio State fans aren't ridiculed for Joe Burrow going to LSU, because Dwayne Haskins throwing for like 50 touchdowns. Like, yeah, he wasn't as good as Joe Burrow, but you were getting elite quarterback play. The quarterback wasn't the reason Ohio State didn't win a national championship with Dwayne Haskins. Like, it was, the other stuff not being as good. So I think that's the point. Like, obviously, if the quarterback's just going to be average to good, then yeah, I'm going to be disappointed that a 5-star went somewhere else and did well. I think that's what the whole Justin Fields experience was for Georgia fans. But the freshman year when he and Fromm were on campus together, like, there was at no point really in the season could you be like, yeah, Fields should be playing. Like, Fromm was playing great.
Switching gears here a little bit. We're not going to do the Big Ten season, the Big Ten over-unders this week. We're going to save it for next week because we went long here with Georgia, Tennessee. There was a lot to talk about here at Dylan Raiola, but I do have a couple other questions for you, Matt Graham. Ross Dellinger, great SI.com reporter. He dropped this, and he's just a must-read, folks, during realignment and everything else that's going on here in the sport. But one thing he wrote this week, quote, the Pac-12, or one thing is certain, the Pac-12 plans to expand by adding San Diego State and maybe SMU coinciding with its completion of a new TV deal. Matt Green, I ask you, does that move the needle for you? Is that a sneaky good ad, bringing in the Dallas market and SMU, who's got a pretty strong collective in the group of 5, from what I've read and seen and heard, is that SMU's got a good thing cooking, obviously, in the state of Texas, and a lot of folks care about football, but putting them out west could be fun. And then San Diego State, who's been a top 25 power year over year, obviously not two programs with the same cachet, goes without saying, as UCLA and USC. But is that just come off to you as like, this is not going to last and the Pac-12 is just fighting for its life? Or do you think that's sustainable to keep this whole thing together and just continue on business as usual with SMU and San Diego State replacing the two? Where do you
do I think that SMU and San Diego State are enough to maintain their Power 5 status? Is that the question? No, I don't. There's no, I think they did something like add Boise State or like a BYU. I don't know, but obviously BYU is going to Big 12. But yeah, I mean, not even though obviously those aren't going to save the conference either, losing USC and UCLA.
You know what stinks too is I wish they kept them, and like if you had just done those ads with USC and UCLA, like I would have loved these two teams in the Pac-12. They would have made a lot of sense. That would have been fun.
SMU, I don't think there's any world universe that I get excited about SMU being in the Pac-12, like a TCU or something, like one of the actual like kind of how Texas A&M, it felt like that was the way they were sticking the middle finger to Texas, was like, we're going to go join the SEC. Like, you do your own thing in the Big 12, because I feel like all the Texas schools just kind of feel a certain way about Texas, So if like a Texas Tech or a TCU or a Baylor went to the Pac-12, like I think that would do way more than SMU. Like that's what is that going to do? You know, like
Pony
Houston would
Express is back.
Yeah, Houston would even do more than SMU.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just my gut tells me this is not going to end well for the Pac-12. And like when this is the backup plan, San Diego State and SMU, it just feels inevitable that they're not going to make it.
It definitely feels inevitable that I feel like the Big 12 with their additions coming this year, it feels like they have a fighter's chance because they brought in like 4 kind of wild cards that are like, these are some pretty respectable programs like coming up to the Power 5, like, and then obviously their potential to maybe expand, because I feel like more than SMU or Texas schools fitting into the Pac-12, like some of those mountain, the Utah, Colorado, obviously Colorado fits in the Big 12. They were already there. Arizona State, like those seem like they could naturally merge in with the Big 12 teams. But yeah, I feel like the future is honestly some sort of merger of the Mountain West and whatever's left in the Pac-12. Like maybe some teams like Oregon and I don't know, Stanford or Oregon and Washington or something get poached by one of the big conferences, by the ACC or some crazy stuff like that. And then, you know, the Oregon States, Washington States of the world get grouped in there with Fresno and Colorado State. And they just kind of form a best of the rest out West. No rhyme intended.
I mean, that's what I would do. I think I talked about in this podcast is like the Pac-12 and the ACC were smart, and you're seeing what's happening with the ACC meetings this week with what Florida State and Clemson are up to in the ACC 7 here, where there's clearly a disconnect in what they want to do. And it looks like what we're at the very least is the whole equal revenue sharing is probably out the window in the ACC sooner rather than later to get Clemson and Florida State and Miami more of the pot there. But the ACC and the Pac-12, just like with geography doesn't matter anymore, Matt Green. And with these two conferences both kind of fighting for their life and the Big 12 kind of establishing themselves and kind of getting their footing, they're like, we're just going to be the best basketball conference. And they're going to add Gonzaga probably in the Big 12. And like they hired an NBA guy, Brett Yormark. Like they're going full on basketball. Like we're going to be the premier basketball conference. They're fine.
They just become like a Power 5 version of like Conference USA, basically.
Yeah. Pac-12 and ACC should expand or should collaborate. Like that should be the goal. Like we had that, remember whatever it was, that loyalty thing we saw last year with the Big Ten, the ACC or whatever, with realignment that didn't last and stand the test of time. But like the Pac-12 and the ACC,
the alliance.
Yeah, that's what it was. The alliance. Yeah. Like the Pac-12 and the ACC combining makes a lot of sense to me. Just them creating their own super conference. It doesn't matter. And then you have some of those big names and you could do 2 divisions where you don't have to even play each other and do that crazy travel throughout the regular season. And then they just meet up in the conference championship game, that sort of thing. Like that is something that makes a lot of sense to me. Like for these TV markets, you get both, and it
makes some sense other than the fact that it makes no sense at all. But for what we're trying to do in this universe, I guess it makes sense now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a crazy summer, and I think we're going to have some more big time moves happening based on reading the tea leaves here. Is that there's more realignment coming, and I think it happens before the start of next year's season. Last thing here.
Who were those the 7 in the ACC?
Magnificent
State. 7.
Yeah, it was it was UNC, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Virginia Tech. Yeah, that was the 7, the ACC 7.
See, I think with the SEC going to 16, it just feels like a nice, solid number that I just don't know what the SEC is going to do. Like, obviously,
they don't need to add right now.
They definitely don't, but I don't know. Some of the if the ACC, if any of these schools start to dismantle, I could see NC State doing something like A&M. You know, like tired of being the second school in the state and joining the SEC or something like that, but. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. It's just craziness. But I came up with that name of the new Pac-12 off the top of my head, and I think we should we should hashtag that or something. We should really get that trending. Best of the rest out west. I think we should as soon as that happens, that's what we're calling the comp. We should go ahead and buy the domain name right now.
That's a really long hashtag.
Hashtag best of the rest out west. There you go. But yeah, that's we'll just save that one. That's a doomsday one. So that's if the Pac-12 just goes ahead and gets poached and like just destroyed as a conference. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but it's not looking good without UCLA and USC.
Last thing here, Matt Green. We had this on the kind of the evergreen that's been sitting here for a little bit, and I wanted to ask you. Auburn and A&M both finished 5-7 last year, bottom of the SEC West. Really weird to see Auburn down there and A&M. A lot of talent there, a lot of talent back this year. I don't think both are going to be 5-7 again this year. I think one of the two have a really good season in the SEC. Who is more likely to contend and be in the thick of things getting to Atlanta come late November based on what you've seen, what the roster is looking like, what the schedule is looking like? Who is your gut telling you is more likely to have a strong bounce back, come back to prominence, like realistic top 10 team next year of the two? Because I think one of the two will be.
If you're talking like actually being a top 10 team, I think it's no question Texas A&M. Like we just know the way they've recruited. Like recruiting rankings aren't everything. Like sometimes the talent just doesn't pan out, but like Auburn has just been a dysfunctional program in recent years. Like it's hard, like as good as a coach as I think Hugh Freeze is, like I don't know if he can just, I think you're doing absolute magic if you come in and make this team finish top 10 here in 2023, right? Are we just saying the first one to do it or like this year?
Yeah.
Like with Bobby Petrino coming in, like we all love to laugh about like the combination of Petrino and Jimbo, but like I feel like it's kind of like Muschamp, kind of the reputation he developed as a head coach. Obviously, he wasn't nearly as disgraced as like Petrino was, but he was really kind of poked fun at like all his tirades and sideline antics and everything and not doing well at two different SEC jobs. But you forget like this guy's a damn good assistant coach. And so that's what Bobby Petrino is. Like this guy's one of the best offensive minds in all of football, like pro or college. Like he's proven to be an elite offensive coach everywhere he's gone. A&M's got some good talent on that roster. Like, so it's not like he's, struggling for a good, we definitely need to see better quarterback play in 2023, but like they got playmakers. Like we've seen how they recruit. So I feel like it's kind of like Brian Kelly with, all his accent and all the stuff making headlines last year in the off season. And people forgot like, yeah, Brian Kelly's a damn good football coach. Like the Petrino and Jimbo thing feels like toxic and like funny, but would it shock you if A&M just had a really good if Bobby Petrino was coaching a really good offense?
I mean, Connor Wegman, I think showed enough. And you have Evan Stewart back, Noah Thomas, Moose Muhammad is a really good player. Aeneas Smith is back. Like there's a lot of talent in that wide receiver room. And then Donovan Green at tight end. Like we'll see what Amari Daniels is. Ruben Owens, highly touted freshman who was originally a big time Louisville commit, but transferred after Satterfield left. But I'm curious to see what they look like. They get Auburn at home in week 4, Matt Green. And that is going to be interesting because the schedules are a little bit different. At Miami, early for A&M is going to be huge. That's a huge game for both schools. Like Miami cannot have the kind of season they had last year with Cristobal. Like as well as he's recruiting and everything else, like you cannot have.
What's a tougher? Sorry to cut you off. What's a tougher game? Because Auburn's got at Cal the same week.
I'm gonna say at Miami's a little bit.
I would hope Miami's better, but I don't even know.
Nah, Cal's pretty bad. Auburn's gonna beat Cal.
Miami is pretty bad too.
I mean, there's a chance both Auburn and A&M are undefeated for that September 23rd game. I wonder if that's an ABC. ABC.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Or not yet.
It's still CBS.
CBS 3:30. Excuse me. 3:30 game. That might be it. But you get Georgia at home if you're Auburn. Still don't think you're gonna win, but I think that might be a little bit more interesting with you Freeze now. You go to LSU. That's tough, but you get LSU after a bye, like on the road. Auburn LSU is always frisky. It's always frisky. I don't think that's
they haven't won at LSU and since like 99 or something like that.
That's fair, but it will be close. So maybe you lose two there. You lose two straight, whatever. Ole Miss at home, Mississippi State at home, at Vandy, at Arkansas, New Mexico State at home, and then you get Bama at home at the end. That looks like worst case scenario for that schedule to me. Looks like 8-4. You go to the I think that's 8-4. I only see worst case scenario 8-4 for Auburn. I am taking Auburn as more likely to have the better season than A&M because if you go to A&M,
wow,
at Miami, they could be a top 10 team this year. At Arkansas,
you really think Miami could be a top 10 team this year?
They have the talent, yeah. They could.
I don't know. Jury's still out for me on Miami.
They could be 5-7 and be a CFP contender. Like Miami can be extremely all over the place. You could tell me either, and I believe you. At Tennessee and Bama in back-to-back weeks, like that is a brutal back-to-back for A&M. Like that's a lot. And you have Arkansas on the road before that.
That's quote unquote easier than at LSU and Georgia in back-to-back weeks. Like I don't think so. I think the preseason predictions are going to have Georgia and LSU winning the East and the West.
What I'm saying is like type of style too. Like Neyland's going to be electric for A&M for that one. And you're probably playing the best offense you'll play in the regular season in that one. And then you play the best defense you're probably going to play the week before in Bama. So you're going to get the physical Bama defense and then the just pace and space and just score all out. Like if the Jimbo offense we saw last year is even close to what we see this year and they come into Neyland with that, like it's going to be rough what that looks like after with South Carolina at home. But you got to go.
I think that's why Petrino's there.
You got to go, and then you finish at LSU. Like I just see 7-5 at this. Like I think 7-5 is very realistic for this A&M team. I think Auburn. You can tell me 9-3, 8-4, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Wow, you are drunk on some Hugh Freeze right now. I
am a big believer in that year one like offensive bump where I just think the blue chippers are going to be there. They should have good quarterback play.
Do you think Auburn has blue chippers on their offense?
Yeah, I think Auburn's going to have some dudes.
Tank Bigsby's gone. I think that was their best player. I do not see the talent on Auburn at all to be able to go 9-3, 8-4. Like I think the biggest difference, they both went 5-7, and Auburn, you went 5-7. You probably didn't blink. You're like Auburn 5-7. Yeah, seems about right. A&M went 5-7, and the world was ending. It was just an absolute catastrophe. So just the expectations where these two programs are right now is just completely different. Like A&M. I
think that Auburn defense is going to be really good. And Philip Montgomery is a good offensive mind coming in there from Tulsa. He brings in his left tackle. We'll see what Dylan Wade looks like. They have some talent at running back, like Jeremiah Cobb. I liked a lot as a true freshman coming in there. So Tennessee was on him for a while. It's Auburn. They're going to have great running back play. That's just what they do. But I just think there's going to be a bump. Like offense, there's always a bump for offense. Like if you're telling me to bet on Hugh Freeze or Jimbo Fisher in the year 2023, I'm betting on Hugh Freeze every single time.
I think you're forgetting Bobby Petrino, man.
I don't know if Bobby Petrino is going to have full control of this offense. We still don't know, Matt Green.
No, that's fair, but I just don't think you can differentiate the schedule between two SEC West teams, really. It's like, I think, Auburn's getting Georgia from the East. I think that's more difficult than getting Tennessee, but, they're both playing at LSU. But
Tennessee's on the road. Georgia's
Alabama at home.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, the at Miami and at Cal, like, that's basically the difference in the schedule. Like, because I think Georgia's a tougher game than Tennessee, but whatever, you can say it's a wash, like in terms of just it's a difficult schedule. So like just the at Miami, I think is the only thing that makes their schedule tougher. And it's like, we don't even know if Miami is going to go to a bowl game. Like we need to see a significant improvement. Like two brand new coordinators after year one, like Cristobal is, I feel like as a head coach, like I feel like the jury's still out on how good Cristobal really is. So I don't know. That's obviously it's not all about Miami, but I just think I think A&M just has way more talent. Like we listed all the skill players that are on this A&M offense. Like Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher, like I think they're going to get those guys. And if nothing else, like obviously it's Jimbo's offense, but he's not an idiot. Like he might be stubborn and have his way of doing things, but like this man knows what's on the line, and he knows that the offense has to be a hell of a lot better than it was last year. So I think Texas A&M. I'm probably not betting on either of them, to be honest, but I would be absolute shocked. Like I would bet serious money against Auburn finishing in the top 10. But if you told me like, guarantee A&M won't finish top 10, I'd be like, they have recruited well. I wouldn't guarantee that. I think Texas A&M just has a significantly higher ceiling in 2023.
That's fair. I'm still betting on the Hugh Freeze top 10 offense possibility versus A&M. Like I just haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen the Hugh Freeze drop, and I'm a believer in these offenses that just translate anywhere. And he's won in the SEC before. He's going to have control. I like the Philip Montgomery hire. I like his staff. I think the competition with Ashford, Holton, and Peyton Thorne will play itself out. They'll figure it out. I think this, at worst, is a top 20 offense in the country. And I think that just matters. Like you saw the bump right away with Tennessee with Heupel. You saw it with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. It happened faster than you think. And I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised.
But it's interesting that you apply that logic to Auburn, but not to Texas A&M, because Bobby Petrino, like if
he was the head coach, I might give it to him. If Bobby Petrino was the head coach, I might do it.
I'm just saying, don't forget about those Arkansas,
I'm not. Bobby Petrino is a great offensive mind. I am not convinced he is going to have full control of this offense to do what he wants to do.
I don't know. I don't think someone with the ego of Bobby Petrino is taking that job without being able to run his offense.
I don't know.
It's just
it's not like beggars can't be choosers, man. He was going to UNLV before that.
Think about what people said.
He was at Missouri State last year.
But think about what people said about Kirby Smart and is he going to let Todd Monken run the offense? Like just these narratives out there that exist. Like Jimbo Fisher brought in a big time dude like Bobby Petrino because he wants him to elevate the offense. Like I think A&M could definitely be a sleeper.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Matt Green, that was fun. That was a good, riveting discussion to talk all things Georgia recruiting for the only time on this very program. So I hope you had fun. That will be it. Tossing it out.
Trust me, it won't be the last time. This 2024 class, once the dominoes start falling, we'll definitely give some updates on why Raiola was that important, why he's an absolute game changer for Georgia. It's not just same old. It's
I just need Mike Matthews to end up. I need Matthews to end up, and I need Jaden Riddell to end up at Tennessee. That's my main thing. I need Jaden Riddell to end up at UT.
Matthews definitely does not seem like he's going to end up at Georgia, but
Wingo
that doesn't mean they couldn't still land a couple 5 stars at the same position. So
yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, for that guy down there in Decatur, Georgia, Matt Green, for myself up here in Knoxville, Tennessee, that is all we've got, and we'll be back next Wednesday.
Well done, nephew. Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.